Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the Smith & Williamson Making Tax Digital webinar. Just before we introduce ourselves, a friendly hello from our legal team who wish to remind you that this webinar is of a general nature and is not a substitute for professional advice specific to your business. Our contact details will be shown at the end of the webinar if you would like to follow up on anything you've heard and discuss its impact on your business more specifically. I'm Sunil Palmer, a Director in the Business Tax Team in Smith & Williamson's London office. I focus on VAT matters, advising clients across all sectors. As we'll come on to, Making Tax Digital for VAT will be the first phase of HMRC's modernisation of the tax system. And consequently, I've been involved with a range of clients to date, assessing the impact on their business. I'm joined by my colleague Tom, who I'm working closely alongside on Making Tax Digital, who will now introduce himself, a brief background of Smith & Williamson for those on the call who are new to S&W, and the agenda for today's webinar.
Thanks, Sunil. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom. I head up the Business Outsource Servicing team up in Birmingham. Along with various accounting and outsourcing solutions, we also advise on finance systems and processes within the finance department, trying to utilise the latest cloud technology to help along that. That is the reason why I'm heavily involved with the Smith & Williamson Making Tax Digital proposition. So a little bit about Smith & Williamson as a practice before we carry on. We're a leading financial and professional services group. We employ over 1,700 people across all our 12 offices in the UK, Ireland and Jersey. We're part of Netclear International, which means we have access to roughly 20,000 professional advisors across the world to help our clients wherever they are. We are the 8th largest UK accountancy firm in the UK. We cover, amongst other various services in accounts and audit, tax, financial services and corporate finance, as well as having an investment management arm. So today, we're going to talk about what is Making Tax Digital and who will be affected. We'll talk about subscribing to the new Making Tax Digital service. We'll have a look at what they mean by digital record keeping and how submitting of VAT returns will happen going forward. We'll look at the pilot, and then we'll end by talking about how we can help.
Thanks, Tom. So, what is Making Tax Digital and who will it impact? Making Tax Digital was first brought to the table by HMRC in 2015 and was later formalised in a concept paper in July 2017. It brings about a digital transformation of the UK's tax system and aims at providing taxpayers with modern and streamlined systems to maintain their tax records, as well as a two-way digital correspondence interface with HMRC. This is very much in line with the global trend we are seeing, where an increasing number of tax authorities are introducing more and more technology into tax processes with a common end goal of achieving real-time reporting. Making Tax Digital for VAT is the first phase of this digital revolution, and it's intended that other taxes, such as income tax and corporate tax, will follow. Despite recent comments in the press stating that there may be delays to the introduction of Making Tax Digital due to additional HMRC resource being required for dealing with the practicalities of Brexit, HMRC have reiterated this week that this will not impact the Making Tax Digital work for businesses they are doing, and the timeframe for Making Tax Digital for VAT will remain as planned. In respect of other taxes, there will be a consultation period commencing for Making Tax Digital for corporate tax soon, so clearly this is still at the forefront of HMRC's thinking. Included in HMRC's key goal for Making Tax Digital is the ability to access taxpayer information as close to real time as possible and allow taxpayers to report their taxpayers without manual intervention. The removal of manual intervention is aimed at reducing errors and mistakes made by taxpayers, which HMRC hope will significantly reduce the estimated tax gap of between £9 and £12 billion per annum. HMRC have also estimated that £4 billion per annum of VAT is being lost in simple VAT mistakes and errors alone. The three fundamental strands to Making Tax Digital are capturing all transactions in a digital format and ideally specific record-keeping software, ensuring there is a digital link or journey of this data from start to finish, and the ability to send data digitally to HMRC through an API, that is, an application program interface. So applying this specifically to VAT, the key changes will be that VAT returns will need to be compiled by pulling data from the taxpayer's digital VAT account, and VAT returns will be submitted to HMRC digitally through an API-enabled product. This may be embedded within your accounting software package, or alternatively a bolt-on app, for example to Excel. Tom will run through this aspect in further detail later. This will be a mandatory change for the vast majority of businesses, as it's currently estimated that 97% of VAT registrations submit their VAT returns online through the HMRC portal. Although this may often be referred to as electronic submission, it does not meet the requirements for making tax digital, as it involves manually typing the 9-box figures into the HMRC portal. Making tax digital for VAT will become mandatory for all VAT return periods starting on or after 1 April 2019, for VAT registered businesses that are obliged to be registered. In reality, this broadly means businesses with a taxable turnover in excess of the compulsory threshold, which is currently £85,000 per annum. So, if you are VAT registered and submit quarterly returns on a calendar quarter stagger, i.e. VAT quarter ends March, June, September and December, the first relevant VAT return for MTD will cover the period 1 April to 30 June 2019, and this will need to be submitted digitally by 7 August 2019. For those VAT registered businesses trading below the 85,000 threshold, making tax digital will be optional, not mandatory, from April 2019, but it is possible, if not likely, that this will change in future. It is also worth noting that making tax digital will be mandatory for all overseas businesses with a UK VAT registration, and there will be no threshold applicable. Finally, the exceptions to making tax digital will be limited. For example, due to insolvency, on religious grounds, or practicality considerations such as not having access to an internet connection. Taxpayers should be aware that businesses claiming exemption will be required to provide evidence to HMRC, so this should be considered in good time. There will be several fundamental areas of the VAT compliance process that won't change. The most important one being the current 9 boxes of headline data provided to HMRC will remain the same. The VAT return frequency, whether monthly, quarterly or annually returned, will also stay the same, as well as the return and payment deadlines. Finally, a business's eligibility to account for VAT under a special scheme, such as a retail scheme, cash accounting, or flat rate scheme, will not change. I think it's also important to highlight at this stage that making tax digital changes the way VAT returns will be submitted and the calculation process undertaken to get to these figures. It will not change the VAT technical position or the amount of VAT that should be payable or receivable. As well as digital record keeping and submitting VAT returns to HMRC through an API, taxpayers will also have the option of submitting supplementary data to HMRC. Broadly, this will be information that is required to be maintained by taxpayers in their digital account anyway, and will include summary totals relating to the 9-box data submitted. For example, turnover totals split between standard rated, zero rated and exempt sales. Another example is information relating to adjustments, including detail of the calculations of such adjustments. There will be no restriction on the number of times additional information can be provided or the frequency of such updates. Furthermore, the provision of such information to HMRC will not create legal liability for the taxpayer. HMRC have confirmed that they will take into account whether a business has provided supplementary data when deciding whether to carry out a VAT inspection. So there are potential advantages in providing information voluntarily, but this should be weighed up against any potential negative consequences. One of the more complex challenges that businesses are likely to face in relation to MTD are adjustments. Included in this category could be partial exemption and capital goods scheme adjustments, fuel scale charges, and correcting historical errors. HMRC have now confirmed that where adjustments are required and are calculated outside of the accounting software, a digital link into the accounting software is not required from the outset. Therefore, it's possible for a business to manually enter adjustments into their software or an MTD-compliant spreadsheet. For any business that needs to regularly make adjustments to the VAT returns, this is one area I would certainly want to be looked at now to assess what is the most efficient way of accounting such data in an MTD-compliant manner, whilst also minimising any manual intervention and potential errors. We'll run through an example of a scenario which includes adjustments later, and we're expecting this to be one of the key development areas in the coming months. HMRC are planning to release some further technical details soon, and we understand that this will be one of the key areas of focus. As well as ensuring you're capable of maintaining digital records and ready for submitting VAT returns through an API, taxpayers will also need to register for the MTD service. This is expected to be possible through your agent, for example, your tax accountant, or alternatively, directly through the HMRC website when this is ready. There shouldn't be a huge amount of information required, most notably your company registration number and VAT number. Following submission of your registration application, HMRC should provide approval within 5 working days. Taxpayers should have a good degree of control over the level of authorisation given to any agent and the information they can see. We also know that your agent or various agents will be able to use their compatible software to submit your VAT returns, or alternatively can submit the VAT returns from your own software. Furthermore, the existing 64A agent authorisation process will continue. I'll now pass over to Tom, who will discuss digital record keeping and the submission of VAT returns digitally in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Sonu. So let's have a look at what HMRC say about the digital record keeping. You must use Making Tax Digital compatible software to keep your digital records, to calculate your VAT return, and to submit the VAT return to HMRC via this API. The key bit of this part here, compatible software, is that it must be a program or a set of programs that not only keep it all digitally and make the connections to HMRC, but that link, that API, must be a two-way API. So you've got to be able to submit your information to them, submit the VAT return, and then receive information back in terms of a submission receipt. If you use more than one program, you maybe have 2 bits of software, or you use Excel at some point to calculate your VAT return, there must be digital links between those programs and bits of software. A digital link means that you can't manually type any numbers from one system to another or from one spreadsheet into your system to submit. You also can't copy and paste any information from one system to another. What you can do is transfer data electronically, either through a link or export an import in and out of a spreadsheet. And a digital link also does, which is quite useful, apply to linking cells within a spreadsheet. So you can have data within different tabs, and it can all link through to a summary perhaps at the front, but as long as those cells are linked with a function or a formula, that is okay. You just can't type or copy and paste. What you can do, if your system isn't going to be compatible, you can use something called a bridging software. This is a digital tool which has your API connection that allows the compatible links to HMRC, and it effectively connects non-functional compatible software and HMRC. So you can use your current system as it is. You can maybe prepare your VAT return within Excel, and then you can use this bridging software to create that link without having to change the system that you're working on. So let's have a look at a couple of theoretical examples. Now, best case scenario, your system that you use will be completely compatible and it will comply with these rules, and you can process and calculate your VAT returns and it all gets submitted electronically. If not, and you do use your software to create your records and your accounting records, you can still control your sales and purchase ledger and your bank rec and your whole general ledger. You can then export that into a spreadsheet where you do your VAT return calculations and any adjustments you need to do. This can then be imported into your bridging software, which contains the API link to HMRC to allow your submission. Remember, all these links have to be digital. Remember what I said on the last slide. There can't be any copy and pasting or manually writing or writing down on a piece of paper and typing it somewhere else. It all has to be digitally linked. This, in theory, is to help remove errors or reduce errors that can happen by copying wrong or transposing the numbers the wrong way around. Now, at this point, if this is your first step into looking into making tax digital, it's probably worth speaking to your current system provider to understand where they are on it. Are they going to be ready? What are their plans? How long do they think it's going to take? And obviously, if they don't think they're going to be ready or they're not planning on being ready at all, now is when you need to start looking at how your process works and what are the bits of bridging software you'll need to make your process compliant.
Thanks, Tom. In this second example, which is actually one of HMRC's own publicly released examples, the VAT affairs of the taxpayer are slightly more complicated. The taxpayer utilises MTD-compatible software to record sales and purchases digitally and to calculate a VAT return. However, an adjustment is required, in this case for fuel scale charges, and this information is currently maintained in a separate Excel spreadsheet. So HMRC have confirmed that it's acceptable from 2019 to journal adjustments into accounting software, but they also note that a digital link may help to reduce errors. However, it is the end submission of the final 9-box figures which must be through an API, as Tom just mentioned. The adjustments in this example are fuel scale charges, but this could equally apply to capital goods scheme adjustments and partial exemption adjustments for businesses that are not entitled to recover their VAT in full. In understanding that changes to software, systems and processes may take time, HMRC has confirmed that for a period of 1 year after the introduction of MTD for VAT, there will be a soft landing for taxpayers. In this period, penalties won't be applied if taxpayers do not fully adhere to the digital record-keeping requirements. For example, on the digital transfer of data from software to spreadsheets and vice versa. This is recognition that it does take time to update legacy systems, but from a practical perspective, your aim remains to be compliant by April 2019. And from discussions with HMRC recently, they're expecting that taxpayers are making preparations now in order to be compliant with MTD by this deadline. HMRC have also introduced a pilot for making tax digital for VAT, with the aim of ensuring any practical issues and teething problems are mitigated prior to mandation in April next year. This kicked off last month and started with small businesses with straightforward VAT affairs. For example, those which do not require any adjustments to be made to the VAT return figures. The pilot is currently in what HMRC refers to as controls go live phase, so is on an invite-only basis. However, this will gradually be rolled out further, and we understand that clients with more complex VAT affairs will be allowed to join the pilot in due course, which is likely to be later this year. Before then, we also expect HMRC to release their list of approved software developers publicly, and that is likely to be later this month or early July. HMRC have said that they've been speaking to around 100 software developers, and 40 are currently in more advanced testing phases. HMRC have also confirmed that this list is made up of a mix of developers new to the market and existing providers who many of you will be familiar with already. During the pilot, agents can act on behalf of clients, assuming the agent has compatible software and is MTD ready. Smith & Williamson have registered to take part in the pilot and have several clients who are keen to be involved. So we expect to be submitting VAT returns under MTD well in advance of the date it becomes mandatory. Also, we know that one accounting software provider, QuickBooks, has recently submitted their first MTD compliant return successfully. Clearly, as the pilot expands, more and more questions will be answered as HMRC's practical understanding develops. Tom will now talk through some experience we've gained so far on advising clients and the type of work we've been undertaking.
Thanks, Sunil. So, how can we help? What we're seeing with clients we're speaking to so far is that now people are having to move over to an MTD compliant system. They're taking the opportunity to take a step back and review the wider business process at the same time. At Smith & Williamson, as part of a combined approach, we often go in together, so the business services team and Sunil's VAT team, we go in and review an overall current position. So from this point, our VAT team will then go off and start to review the VAT processes and what tweaks can be made there, while my team will look at the wider systems and see what needs to happen. Sunil, can you just give a brief explanation of what your team look at on the VAT side?
Thanks, Tom. Sure. We've generally been advising clients on various forms of MTD readiness assessments today. The exact phases undertaken have really been dictated by the level of complexity of the client's VAT affairs. However, at a high level, this generally involves reviewing the client's current VAT processes and confirming the areas that need to change in order to be MTD compliant. We've produced a gap analysis report of our findings and advised on potential solutions to clients on any areas that they need to focus on. From our practical experience to date, I think there's probably two key areas that clients have been concerned with most. And I think firstly, that's understanding the technology required and how this will work in practice, and also ensuring that any process changes are reliable and work for the business. As Tom mentioned, what we've found works really well so far is the collaborative approach we've taken with our internal teams, such as the VAT team and Tom's business outsourcing team, as we work together and provide an integrated solution to the clients.
Thanks, that's useful. And then obviously at the same time, while that's all going on, we will also review the systems. Is it fit for purpose? What else does it need to talk to within the business? And make suggestions on how we can start to potentially build up your ecosystem. What I mean by ecosystem is if you've got a cloud-based platform that is your typical accounting system, the way the sector works now is that you get all these different app providers that will bolt on to your cloud accounting system in the middle. So once you have your system in place, you can start adding on supporting systems around it as you need it. You can start looking at document storage systems and e-signing to take away a bit of the heat from the purchase ledger. Once you start adding daily bank feeds that automatically go into your cloud platform and card and online payments, which is a much cheaper alternative to direct debits, that can start to help your credit control process, along with various systems that can automate those chaser, very manual, repetitive processes that you do in your sales ledger department. Various other systems, staff expenses and time scheduling can help. And once you add things like project management and reporting and CRM systems, all of a sudden you have, for a relatively small monthly fee, overall business system that is built just for you because you've only added on the bits that you need. The best part of this is, because they all integrate and talk, there's very little manual element in between. You don't have to post journals from one system to the other. But because they're all subscription-based, if you don't want it anymore, you can just cancel it. If you thought you'd use it more than in reality you are, you can just stop paying. So it's very flexible to how your business is working.
Thanks, Tom. That's interesting. So, hopefully this morning's webinar has been helpful and given you a good idea of whether you will be impacted when Making Tax Digital becomes mandatory from 1 April 2019. From work we've undertaken undertaken so far, we consider that the vast majority of businesses that are required to be VAT registered will require some degree of change. The next step for such businesses is really to fully understand your current VAT return process and the capability of your current systems. There's likely to be quite a range of readiness between different software providers, so as Tom mentioned, an upfront discussion with your current provider will help you understand this. We're helping a number of clients in mapping out their current VAT compliance processes and providing a gap analysis report on where they are now and the areas they need to focus on to be MTD compliant. From there, we're able to advise on the full range of solutions available and what may be the most efficient for your specific business. Where possible, it's also helpful to view the introduction of Making Tax Digital as an opportunity rather than just yet another compliance requirement to deal with. You may have been waiting for the right time to review your VAT compliance process and controls. If you're a larger business, this may be a good opportunity to document your processes for SAO purposes, for example, or conduct a review of such processes. Given Making Tax Digital for VAT is only the first phase and other taxes will follow, this may also prove the perfect time to review your system's capabilities wider and understand the benefits that cloud technology and other digital solutions may bring to your business, as Tom just mentioned. We're happy to discuss your business in further detail, the potential of MTD and solutions we can bring to you based on our experiences with MTD to date. So we're now going to answer some of the questions that have been raised. If we don't have time for all of the questions on this webinar, our contact details will be on screen, so do take this opportunity to get in touch and we can follow up on any points specific to your business. We will also keep you updated of other Making Tax Digital related events we are doing. I know our Bristol office has a seminar in July, and we're expecting to have an event at our London office in early October. It's certainly going to be an area that moves when HMRC releases more information, and we'll keep you updated on that.
So, one question that's come in now that's relatively straightforward. Sunil, when can I subscribe to Making Tax Digital?
Yeah, I've seen that question quite a bit, and the only answer I can give at the moment is not yet. I know that's not particularly helpful, but it's not possible as yet. But we expect HMRC to be releasing further information in the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll get a better indication of it. I think, as I mentioned in the slides, I think the one important note to make is that we're not expecting this to be a particularly complex or arduous process, and HMRC are very much aiming to complete and acknowledge requests as soon as it is available on their website in 5 working days.
Cool, thank you very much. Another question here. There's a few questions that are briefly around this subject. I know I'll be caught by Making Tax Digital, but I'm unsure when my first period that will take account. We submit VAT returns for the April, July, October, January.
Okay. I think in my slides I gave the example of calendar quarter staggers. And in terms of when MTD becomes mandatory, this is an area that we do have certainty on. The important point and the relevant VAT return is the return starting on or after 1 April 2019. Therefore, in this scenario, the quarter ending April 19 will have started on the 1st of February, i.e. before April, and will be submitted as usual by 7th of June 2019. The first MTD relevant return for this period will be 1 May, 31 July 2019, and will need to be submitted by 7 September 2019.
Great, thank you very much. Another question we've got here, what if my system isn't planning on being compatible? We don't want to change our current system as it works for us. So yeah, this kind of falls into the bridging software bit, where you can utilize another system that can submit to HMRC, and it's just about tailoring your system to that and how you can get it in there and how you can make it work. I know, similarly, we've got another question around the same subject, where someone has asked, how do you define a making tax digital compliance spreadsheet? Large businesses carry out their partial exemption calculations within Excel. Can this continue as is, provided there's no manual entering of data? Yes, so you can still use Excel to do these partial exemptions and any adjustments you need. As you say, as long as there's no manual entering of data, as long as the way it comes out of your system to the spreadsheet is a digital link, as long as any calculations you're doing within the spreadsheet are all linked within the spreadsheet and you're not typing anything in, that's fine. And then it's about getting that information back into whether it's your own system or whether it's into another system like a bit of bridging software that you need.
Thanks, Tom. I think there's another one as well. Will it be possible to submit returns through the online portal as we currently do during the soft landing? And the short answer to this is no. HMRC specifically said that VAT registered businesses trading below the registration threshold, that the portal will remain open to them. However, we don't expect it to be an option for those where MTD is mandatory. HMRC have also said during the soft landing there may be relaxations on late filing penalties, but the key point is that you'll have to submit your VAT return through the API. And this is one of the reasons why we, and HMRC are advising taxpayers to ensure they seek advice and get on top of this now.
Cool, marvellous, thank you. Some more questions coming in here. We already submit VAT returns via Xero, great. But do I need to contact HMRC to tell them that we do this? No, you don't need to tell them that it's coming through Xero. You'll obviously have to subscribe to the Making Tax Digital service, but you don't need to specifically tell them that it's through Xero. Obviously, Xero will be one of the bits of software that I imagine would become MTD compliant because they're heavy in the cloud scene.
And just on that subscription bit, Tom, I think the last part of the question covered, the subscription will be a fairly simple process on the HMRC website with just some of your information. As I mentioned, not available to do that now, but will be in the future, and HMRC will make that clear.
Cool. Another quick question. Someone's asked, will we let people know when this list of software comes about? Absolutely. Anyone who's signed up for this will keep updated with our information, whether it's more events or whether it's just to send out a bit of an update. We'll obviously keep you in the loop. So when they do announce the list of software that will work, we'll happily keep you updated.
Absolutely, and a similar question as well, just about wanting the recording of this webinar so that data can be sent internally. Absolutely, people can receive that as well by email. Okay, there's another question in. How do you find an MTD compliant spreadsheet? Large businesses carry out their partial exemption calculations within Excel, a manual adjustment to the finance system data. Can this continue as is, or is sorry, what's that question?
Sorry, I think we've covered one pretty similar. There's one here, Sunil's probably more for you. How does it work for group registrations where the individual entities are held on separate data sets?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm actually working with quite a large VAT group on Making Tax Digital. That specific group has grown by acquisition over the years. So the position they've ended up in is that they've got various legacy systems that capture data for various entities in the VAT group. And the key point here is what Tom discussed, that there must be a digital link between the systems. So it's okay to calculate individual VAT, mini VAT returns, if you want to call them, for each entity of a VAT group, but there must be a digital link with that information flowing through. And also, the 9-box figures for the VAT group as a whole must be submitted digitally through an API. Again, given this is probably one of the more complex areas, like adjustments, hopefully HMRC will release some more examples and some more detail on this in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Sunil. Another question came in recently, which was pretty much along those lines, so hopefully that's answered that one too.
Yep.
Someone's asked the cost for the bridging software. That kind of depends on what your current software can do and what you need it to do. So some will have quite a straightforward requirement. Others will be more technical. So it's not as simple as giving a cost, but happy to have the conversation if you'd like us to look into that a bit further. A question about whether Smith & Williamson will be developing an Excel API solution for clients. Yes, we have a solution that works, that we're in the process of talking to various people about. It's not a direct from Excel API, but it's taken advantage of a bit of bridging software. That means that all our VAT return clients will be compliant.
And I think, Tom, there's another similar question on cost as well as bridging software. There's one that just says, how much do you charge for an implementation review for making tax digital? Which I think is a good question. I think on that, it's hopefully come across in this webinar that there will be various options for taxpayers in terms of potential solutions. It's not really one of those where a one-size-fits-all solution that you can buy off the shelf. That's not going to really be possible. Consequently, the cost will depend on a case-by-case basis. And what we've found so far is that this is largely driven by the complexity of your VAT affairs. For example, do you have to make adjustments, partial exemption? Is there a VAT group in place with different legacy systems? And also your starting point. So by that, I mean your current VAT processes that you have in place. As I mentioned, we're working on examples across the range, and the price differs quite a bit from those simple straightforward taxpayers with straightforward VAT affairs, which just need advice on a piece of bridging software, to those VAT groups with different systems and partial exemption adjustments. So just going back to the question about cost, it will depend on your exact circumstances, but we're now at the stage where we understand what we need to look out for, the areas that require more time spent, and can therefore give you an accurate fixed fee. The approach we've generally taken is to have a half-an-hour call to an hour meeting for no charge to get this understanding and then discuss NTD at a high level at that point and follow up with a fee quote that we're confident will be accurate and will see you be NTD compliant well within the deadline.
Marvellous, thank you. Someone's asked a question here, can you input data from an accounting program into a spreadsheet, then use the spreadsheet to link to HMRC if your software is not compatible? Excel programs more cost effective than upgrading. You can't input the numbers from your accounting program into a spreadsheet because that isn't a digital link. You can export your data from an accounting program into a spreadsheet. That is absolutely fine, but you can't copy or type those numbers from your program into the spreadsheet. Totally understand your point about Excel being a bit more cost effective than upgrading your whole system. But yes, you can use the spreadsheet as long as you're not manually typing those numbers in yourself. Most accounting systems will have an export functionality, so you can throw your data, whether it's a TB or the transactions, into a spreadsheet, and you can do your workings at that point. But yeah, as long as you make sure that it does stay a digital link and there's no manual adding in, that's absolutely fine.
Yep. Another question, if I join the VAT NTD pilot, do I have to join the income tax NTD pilot and vice versa? My understanding from that point is no, you don't. You can opt in individually for each separate pilot. As that question relates to, there is also an ongoing pilot for income tax as well as VAT, but you can opt into the VAT one without being committed to opt into others, as far as I understand. That's a good question there.
So another one possibly for you. Will HMRC require access to original documentation, i.e. invoices via the bridging or other software?
No. Obviously, if HMRC come in to do a VAT audit or inspection at the moment, then you've got to provide access to copies of those invoices. But that's not specifically in one area that will change under Making Tax Digital. So it is just sort of the digital data records that need to be maintained and the submission of the return, but HMRC won't necessarily require access to the original documentation in any different way than they do now.
Someone's asked here, do you have to use a cloud-based software, i.e. will all MTD compliant software be cloud-based? You don't have to use a cloud-based software, no. So I know as long as you have that link, that's fine, and hopefully your system will become MTD compliant. But it's not just cloud accounting systems that will create this. So depending what you're on, it may be fine. As I say, it's probably best if you're not on a cloud system. It's probably a harder link because the cloud side of things, it's kind of already there and it's a given, and they've already got all their APIs working. So maybe in that instance, probably a conversation with your current provider just to understand what they're planning. But certainly it's not absolutely definite that you need a cloud system.
Okay. Another question, again, can this slide pack be distributed? Absolutely, we can send that round with the recording.
Okay, I think that's just about all we've got time for. We've got someone frantically waving at us in the room saying we've run out of time. There's a lot of questions that have come in, so thank you for that. We've tried to not repeat the content, which is why there's been small gaps in between, because you're all asking similar sort of questions, but it sounds like you're all pretty well on your road to thinking how you can get MTD compliant. So if there's any questions we haven't responded to, we'll come back to you following this specifically. If you want to discuss your requirements just for you and have a bit more of an in-depth conversation, or you want to ask a question to either of us, our contact details are on screen there, and we're happy to help. But as I say, we'll try and come back to anyone we haven't spoken to. Hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. We'll circulate slides and recordings to everyone who signed up when they become available. And thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.